Today, I am going to argue that we don't know what God is made of. In fact, this is just absurd to even think of him because there really is no actual definition of what God is. I have yet to be shown what God is to even consider that this being is a reality. Thus far, I have only heard generalized concepts that have no merit, nothing but assertions that can be easily dismissed by using a bit of simple scrutiny. If I would see a giant with lightning bolts shooting out of his arse, I may take pause to say that this has a much better chance of being an actual God than the non-material Christian God. Ask a theist to define their God so I can conceptualize it is a question that is usually answered by accusing someone, such as an atheist, of not being worthy or incapable of understanding or knowing this deity. You are expected to take someone's word for it that he even exists. I would have to toss my intellectual honesty to the side and have faith. That is just a non-starter for me. Then, from there, are projections at the non-believers to accept this deity as a real thinking agent that created everything, knows it all, including the future, which creates more questions about this moral character. These are characteristics of a narcissistic men and not of an all-loving God. The only knowledge I have of this God is that theists say he's real, which is just it. That's all they are doing, no matter how many onion layers of semantic sophistry they apply to the argument for its existence. They have all fallen short of being a solid argument. I have to come to the conclusion that these are stories that started with a sprinkle of truth and were perpetuated from the leaders of tribes that wanted to have control over the masses, which it may have done. Now this should be obvious, or at least it is to me, that it's a story used to get people to obey their king, which should make it obvious to the reader that this was meant to prop up the leaders and to keep their power from being challenged. All of this has led me to conclude that this deity is made up by man. So here I am, trying to figure out what God would be. My best description of him is that he is thought projections from the foibles of the human mind. He is described by using words like love, jealous, angry, and revengeful, and stuff like that. Now these are emotions, and human emotions at that. These words are used to describe weather patterns, or earthquakes, or volcanic eruptions, and maybe even some things that are good that are about to happen. So it is justifiable to say that God is created from the thoughts of the human mind. Now, as far as having a physical presence in the universe, their proposed God, or entity, is invisible, inaudible, incorporeal, immaterial, exists outside the universe, is timeless, not observable, immeasurable, does nothing, and leaves no evidence for its existence. That pretty much satisfies the exact definition of imaginary. I mean, we can look at how many gods there are, thousands of them, and they're all different. Well, what does this mean exactly? I mean, I can point at anything and give it X value or label, and it doesn't even do me any good to label it as something that's beyond what I perceive in this world of reality that I perceive. To name it something else, like a god, this lampshade or this plot of sand, this rock, this is God. And to do that, it doesn't do me any good. It's just the same thing goes if you label it as an emotion or something like that, or the bad weather is the God. How many gods are there? Anyway, this is just a different way of saying that we can't possibly know this being since he is beyond this universe's grasp. But what good is this? How did you get to decide that it was your God? Why do other religions and denominations, for that matter, disagree on which God it is? How is it that you know He knows all past and present and future events? I don't think it's possible to even test this. This is why I wonder about His existence. If He knows everything, then He would know the countless victims of His creation that suffer in this world's reality. On top of that, He created millions of people that He knew He would send to hell. Why would you create something just to watch it suffer for all time? That is absurd and should be actually ridiculed as such. This is just another case and another story of a different type of situation that names a God. That is why He is just nothing. Everybody keeps naming Him something else. He's a thought. And I'll tell you what, some people have tried to claim that there's predictions coming out of these whatever gods or whatever, but none of them hold up to any scrutiny, since they are just generalized, metaphoric, and downright ridiculous at times. So, here we are again asking if God can logically do the impossible, which you answered no. I can't help but agree with this. But this brings up another problem. It would seem that this God is bound by man-made laws of logic. It is once again a demonstration of evidence that brings me to conclude that this proposed entity is created from the foibles of man's mind. How can an all-powerful being be bound by anything, much less a man-made construct of logic? His omnipotence is amounting to a fart in a windstorm, and an omni-generalization. This doesn't even give me the slightest grasp of any sort of assimilance to form a concept of this proposed deity. If He is everywhere at all times, that it is possible, then why have I not detected or felt His presence? This brings up even more of a moral issue with Him, since He watches idly by as people suffer and die horrible deaths. But yet the theist claims that this is for the better good. I know I could do better if I was given such a power. But why does He even allow evil to exist? He doesn't suffer Himself. But even the story that tells of Him being a human only had Him suffer for a short time compared to many other people that He allowed to suffer. I would gladly take 3 days over months of chemotherapy. On top of that, I still have no idea what this God is. Nothing proposed so far is anything more than words describing an unseen, unheard, thinking agent that exists, yet He doesn't. But what good is it if we call it God or nature then? Maybe a meteorologist could be a prophet, since he can sometimes predict the weather using nature. But joking aside, we still have to make decisions on what we do to make our lives more comfortable and enjoyable. I only have evidence that this world is all I got. So to label something that is not tangible to any physical shape or form besides what you perhaps feel is God, it does no good to just rubber stamp the whole universe as God. It possibly could do more harm than good. If we set our focus on something that we think is a thinking agent, but only one person can hear and relay to us what this being wants for us, then you are risking being told to do unhealthy choices, since someday I would guess is that either people will follow some fool or that a power-hungry person would use this to trick people into giving him this power. What does this being want? Who will interpret what this being wants, since I can't hear it? Should I trust this person telling me he is getting advice from the universe, God, whatever it is? Do I have to worship this universe God? Why will he only speak to others and not to me? If you're not asking these questions, then you are at risk of being fooled by another person's foolishness and ignorance, or another person that wants to fool you. If you say listen to nature and hear God, I can't understand that. I don't know how you can. It still says nothing. It says nothing that I can understand. And I have no need to call it God for that reason. And if some of you say that you do hear what the nature is saying and calling it God, then I have to question you, and I would not trust that. I don't know why you would. But anyway, you can't make something more than what it actually is. You might feel like it does. And I have no need for something to fool me into feeling comfortable. Thank you.